Welcome back to her secret diaries, the place where real stories meet raw emotions and quiet revenge turns into powerful transformation. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or humiliated in silence, today's story is going to stay with you. Because sometimes, the best response isn't confrontation, it's elevation. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who builds an empire out of spite. But life has a strange way of pushing you to your limits, and then showing you exactly who you're capable of becoming. It all started on a Tuesday morning. Nothing special. Just another day at work, or, at least, that's what I thought. I had been dating Daniel for almost 2 years. He wasn't perfect, but he was stable, kind, or at least that's what I believed, and we had built a quiet routine together. He worked at a mid-sized logistics company called Carter & Vale. I, on the other hand, was still climbing my way up in a completely different field, trying to prove myself every single day. That morning, Daniel invited me to his office for lunch. It wasn't something he usually did, but he sounded excited. Proud, even. "My boss wants to meet you," he had said at the time. I thought it was sweet. I wish I had known better. When I arrived, the office felt cold, not physically, but emotionally. You could sense the hierarchy in the air. People didn't just work there, they obeyed. Daniel greeted me quickly, but something was off. He seemed nervous, distracted, before I could ask. He led me into a glass-walled office. That's where I met her, Victoria Hale. She didn't stand up. She didn't smile. She barely looked at me before continuing to type on her laptop. "So this is her," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. I forced a polite smile. "Nice to meet you." She finally looked up, and the way her eyes scanned me felt like I was being measured and dismissed all at once. "This is what you've been distracted over, Daniel," she said casually, as if I wasn't even in the room. I laughed awkwardly, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. What happened next? "I'll never forget," she began criticizing him. Not privately, not professionally, but right there, in front of me. "You've been missing deadlines," she said. "Your focus is slipping. And now I see why." My heart started racing. Daniel didn't defend himself. He didn't defend me. He just stood there, silent. I waited for him to say something, anything, but he didn't. Victoria leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "You know what your problem is," she continued. "You let things like this," she gestured vaguely toward me, "interfere with your performance." I felt my face burn. Still, I stayed calm. "I don't think it's fair to," I started. She cut me off instantly. "I wasn't speaking to you." And just like that, I was erased, humiliated, reduced to nothing in a room where I had done nothing wrong. I turned to Daniel, expecting him to step in. He avoided my eyes. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. I excused myself and walked out. I didn't cry. Not there. Not yet, but something had changed. That night, I asked Daniel one simple question. "Why didn't you say anything?" His answer: "I didn't want to make things worse." Worse, as if watching someone degrade your partner wasn't already the worst thing. That was the moment I realized something important. He wasn't weak in that moment. He was always weak. I just hadn't seen it clearly before. We broke up a week later. No drama. No shouting. Just silence. But the story didn't end there, because I couldn't forget that office, that feeling, that moment where someone decided I was insignificant, and more importantly, I couldn't forget how easily they got away with it. So I did something unexpected. I started researching Carter & Vale. At first, it was curiosity. Then it became something else. Obsession. The company wasn't as stable as it appeared. Beneath the polished exterior, there were cracks. Financial mismanagement. Poor leadership decisions. Over-reliance on outdated systems. And Victoria, she wasn't a visionary. She was a control freak. The kind of leader who maintains power through fear, not competence. I saw an opportunity now. I didn't have millions sitting in a bank account, but I had something better. Strategy. I spent months learning everything I could about acquisitions, investments, and corporate structure. Nights turned into early mornings. Coffee became my closest companion. I reached out to people, investors, advisors, people who knew the game. Most of them didn't take me seriously at first, but I didn't need everyone, I just needed the right ones. And slowly, piece by piece, things started moving. Carter and Vale was vulnerable, and I was patient. 6 months later, I made my first move. A small investment group backed quietly, strategically began acquiring shares. Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to build presence. I stayed invisible. I didn't want attention, not yet. Meanwhile, the company continued its downward spiral. Poor decisions stacked on top of each other. Employees leaving, clients losing trust, and Victoria, she doubled down. More control, more pressure, more fear, exactly what I needed, because leaders like her don't adapt, they collapse. A year after that humiliating day, everything changed. The opportunity finally came. A major stakeholder decided to sell, and I was ready. With the backing I had built, the planning, the timing, I made my move. And this time Mike didn't stay invisible. The meeting was scheduled. Board members, executives, and her. Victoria Hale. I walked into that same office, but this time, everything was different. The room went silent. She looked at me, and for the first time, she didn't recognize me. Not immediately. I took my seat, calm, composed, confident. The presentation began. Numbers, projections, offers, and then my name was said. As the lead investor, as the new majority stakeholder. That's when it hit her. I saw it. The flicker of realization. The shift in power the moment she understood. But I didn't smile. I didn't gloat, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about resolution. After the meeting, she approached me. You, she said quietly. Yes, I replied. There was a long pause. I didn't expect. She started. I know, I said. She straightened her posture, trying to regain control. What do you want? She asked, and for a moment, I thought about that day. That office, that humiliation. Daniel standing there silent, but instead of anger, I felt something else. Peace. Double quotes. I want this company to succeed, I said. She looked surprised. You'll be stepping down, I continued. Effective immediately. No shouting. No insults. Just facts. Just consequences. And just like that, it was over. Daniel. I saw him once more in the hallway. He looked smaller. Not physically. But in presence. In confidence. In everything. Hey, he said awkwardly. I nodded politely. No bitterness. No resentment. Just distance. Did you do all this? He asked. Yes, I said simply. He looked down. I should have said something that day. He admitted. I paused. You should have. I replied. And then I walked away. Because some people don't need punishment. They just need to live with their choices. Today, Carter and Vale is a different company. Stronger. Healthier. Built on respect, not fear. And me. I didn't just reclaim my dignity. I redefined my worth. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. The moment someone underestimates you is the moment you gain the advantage. Not by proving them wrong with words, but by proving yourself right with actions. So if you've ever been humiliated, ignored, silenced, remember this: you don't need to fight for respect. You build a life so powerful that respect becomes inevitable. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's outgrowing the situation so completely that it no longer has power over you. This was my story. And if it resonated with you, you already know what to do next. Stay strong, stay focused, and never let anyone define your value. Because your story, it's just getting started. I wish I could tell you that everything after that moment became easy. That once I stepped into power, the world suddenly respected me. And every door opened without resistance. But that's not how reality works. Power doesn't erase the past, it forces you to confront it. Because the truth is, buying the company wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a much harder one. The first week after the transition was chaos disguised as order. On paper, everything looked clean. The contracts were signed, the leadership change was official, and I now had the authority to reshape everything. But beneath that surface, there was tension. People were watching me, not admiring, not welcoming, watching, waiting for me to fail, because in their eyes, I wasn't just new, I was an outsider, and worse. I was the woman who replaced Victoria. Hale, you don't just remove someone like her without leaving a vacuum behind. She had ruled that company with fear for years. And when fear disappears, people don't immediately feel safe. They feel uncertain, and uncertainty can be just as dangerous. I walked through the office that first Monday as the new owner. And the silence felt familiar, not the same silence from before. This one was heavier, colder, calculated. Conversations stopped when I passed by. Eyes followed me, then quickly looked away. Some people smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. They didn't trust me, not yet, and honestly, I didn't expect them to. Trust isn't given, it's built. But what I didn't anticipate was how deep Victoria's influence still ran. Her systems, her loyalists, her way of doing things, it was all still there, and they weren't ready to let go. By Wednesday, I started seeing it clearly. Reports were delayed. Meetings were forgotten. Decisions I made were quietly ignored or slowed down. Not openly, not directly, but strategically. This wasn't rebellion, it was resistance. And resistance is harder to fight because it hides behind politeness. I could have walked in and fired everyone. Made an example out of someone, proved that I was in charge, but that would have made me exactly like her. And I didn't come this far just to become another version of Victoria Hale. So I did something else. I listened. For 2 weeks, I didn't make any major changes. I observed. I sat in meetings without speaking much. I asked questions instead of giving orders. I let people really talk for the first time in years. And slowly, the truth started revealing itself. The company wasn't failing because of incompetence. It was suffocating under control. Employees weren't lazy. They were afraid. Afraid to make decisions. Afraid to take initiative. Afraid to fail. Because failure, under Victoria, didn't lead to learning. It led to humiliation. Public humiliation, just like the day I experienced. And suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't just about fixing a company. It was about rebuilding a culture. And that's much harder than fixing numbers on a spreadsheet. One afternoon, I called for a company-wide meeting. Not in the boardroom. Not in some formal setting. In the open workspace. No barriers, no glass walls. No hierarchy. Just people. You could feel the tension before I even spoke. They expected an announcement. A list of changes. New rules. New pressures. Instead, I told them the truth. I know you don't trust me, I said. The room went still. I wouldn't trust me either, I continued. Not yet. That caught their attention. Because honesty was something they weren't used to. I'm not here to control you, I said. I'm here to rebuild what this company was supposed to be. No one interrupted, no one moved. I won't promise you perfection, I added. But I will promise you this: no one in this company will ever be humiliated for doing their job again. You could feel it. A shift. Small. Subtle. But real. That was the first crack in the wall Victoria had built. And cracks spread. Over the next few months, things started changing. Not dramatically, but steadily. Departments began communicating again. Ideas started flowing. People spoke up in meetings. At first, cautiously, then more confidently. And the numbers. They followed. Because when people feel safe, they perform better. It's that simple. But not everyone was happy. There were still those who preferred the old system. The ones who benefited from fear. The ones who had power. Not because they were capable, but because they were obedient. They saw me as a threat. And they weren't wrong. One of them was Mark. Senior operations manager. Close to Victoria. Very close. He had been with the company for over a decade and had built his position by aligning himself with her. He didn't challenge her, he supported her blindly, and now he was struggling. Because in a system based on trust, his skills didn't stand out. His control did. And control was no longer valued. At first, he tried to undermine me quietly, questioning decisions, delaying implementations, creating confusion where there was clarity. But I noticed, of course, I did. You don't survive what I went through without learning to read people, so I called him into my office, not the old office. I had changed. That too. No more glass walls, no more intimidation. Just a space for conversation. He walked in confidently, almost smug. I assume you know why you're here, I said. He nodded. If this is about the recent delays, it's not, I interrupted calmly. That threw him off. It's about alignment, I continued. Or the lack of it. He stayed quiet. You were very effective under Victoria, I said. A small smile appeared on his face. But that system doesn't exist anymore, I added. The smile faded. And you have two choices, I said. Adapt, or leave. There was no anger in my voice, no threat, just truth. He tried to argue, to defend himself, to explain, but deep down, he knew. A week later, he resigned, and just like that, another piece of the old system disappeared. But the most unexpected part of all this was how I changed. Because success doesn't just test your abilities, it tests your identity. There were nights I sat alone, wondering, when did I become this person? The one making decisions that affected hundreds of lives. The one walking into rooms without hesitation. The one who no longer needed validation from anyone. It didn't happen overnight. It happened through pain. Through humiliation. Through silence. Through choosing myself over and over again. And then, one evening, something happened that I didn't expect. I received an email, short, simple, from Victoria Hale. I'd like to meet. That was it. No explanation, no tone, just a request. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity is a powerful thing, so I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, neutral ground. No offices, no power dynamics, just two people. She looked different, not weaker, but less sharp. Less guarded. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded. There was a long pause before she spoke again. I've been watching what you've done with the company, she said. I didn't respond, and I was wrong about you, she added. That I didn't expect, not from her. I built that company through control, she continued, because I thought that was the only way, and now, I asked. She looked down briefly. Now I see the cost of it. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just real. You didn't just take the company, she said. You changed it. I held her gaze. I didn't do it alone, I replied. That mattered. Because this wasn't just my victory anymore. It belonged to everyone who chose to believe in something better. She nodded slowly. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I'm not holding on to anything, I replied. And that was the truth. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped needing closure. I created it. We didn't become friends. We didn't stay in touch. But that meeting, it closed a chapter. Quietly, without drama, without revenge, just understanding. And as I walked out of that cafe, I realized something important. The girl who walked into that office a year ago She would have never imagined this ending. Not because it was impossible, but because she didn't yet understand her own strength. And maybe that's the point of all of this. You don't become powerful by avoiding pain. You become powerful by surviving it and choosing to grow anyway. So if you're in a moment right now where you feel small, ignored, disrespected, just remember this. The story isn't over. Not even close. Because one day, you might walk back into the same room that once broke you. And this time, you won't be the same person. You'll be the one who rebuilt everything, including yourself. And when that day comes, you won't need revenge. You'll already have everything you deserve.
That's all for today's story. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. This is Storyova, where your story matters. And I'll see you in the next one.